delighted to hand over to Lucy Watson, our chair, and who will be leading the meeting.
Excellent, thank you. So welcome everybody to this annual general meeting of the Patients Association, where we're going to review what we achieved, as Rachel said, during 2021, so our annual report and also our accounts. And it's a positive story, I hope, and we've got lots to tell you, and we're really keen to hear from you too. Now, what I didn't expect to be saying after this time last year was that we've had to think really carefully about our leadership and decision making through the pandemic again, and here we are still online, although hopefully life is starting to improve and get somewhat back to normal. But what I do want to reflect on is really that this pandemic has taken a huge toll on the country, on everybody in our country, but particularly it's been for us very hard for our members and for patients. And what we still see now is the impact of the pandemic on patients, as the demand on health services is astronomical, and the significant shortages of workforce, and all of those things coming together, and the unmet need for patients who've waited to seek access to health services until they felt safe to do so, means that, you know, so many people now are having to wait so long for so many different services. So for us, the importance of being here and making sure that we have a sustainable organisation that continue to speak up for patients is really important. And I would just like to thank our leadership team and our staff team for keeping going through another year of the pandemic and another year of working at home. They have been able to start to meet together and have some meetings together in person, which has been great, particularly as we have had new members of our team. But it is hard. Although there are great benefits to working at home, it's also very hard for many of you, I'm sure will know, spending your time at a screen all day. So a big thank you to them. And then but then moving on, what we talked about last year was that we had managed to develop our strategy while we were in the first year of the pandemic online. And then at the start of this year, we launched it. And the real headline around our strategy, as I hope everybody knows, is around patient partnership. And this has been really something that is really exciting to me. I've often, when I first joined the Patients Association, I was thinking, well, what is our real focus? Because there's so many different things we could be doing. And actually, when we, through our discussions and our engagement with different stakeholders and with yourselves, when we really started to understand some of the things that we're going to talk about later, like, you know, how you really work with your clinicians and have a proper relationship, how the health service can really listen to patients and work with patients when they're wanting to make service changes. So those changes are going to make a difference to you and how you access services, not just make it better for professionals. Then when that crystallized into patient partnership, it just made so much sense. And as we've launched that strategy this year, as you'll hear from the work that the team have started to do to implement that strategy, but I think also for trustees, as we are ambassadors for the organisation and talk with different stakeholders and different groups about what we're trying to achieve, being able to talk from the perspective of patient partnership just makes so much sense. But we'll say a little bit more. And for us as well, I think it's a very clear message around, if you really get that partnership right, both at the individual clinician and patient level, and also in that service redesign, service change level, then we'll really start to make a difference to people's health. And for us, it'll really start to make a difference for our beneficiaries and realise the public benefit that we are here to achieve. So just a little bit more about the board and the Board of Trustees and what we've done this year. So one of the things that over the year, we keep an eye on changes and things that are being advised to us from the Charity Commission about how to be a well-governed charity. And being a well-governed charity, although it might sound boring, actually, if we don't get the governance right, then we won't necessarily have the income and the money that we need to do the things we do, and we won't have a clear sense of direction to enable our teams to be able to deliver and really make a difference for you, our members, and for our beneficiaries. So one of the things we've done to make sure that trustees feel involved and feel that they are being, that their skills and expertise are being used, but also that they feel that the board is effective and is well governed, is that we've put in place over a few years now, arrangements that we call Trustee Conversations, because of course trustees come in their own time, so they don't, it's not an appraisal, but it is a chance for a trustee to get to know another trustee better and to be able to talk about what they think is working well and what hasn't been working so well. And those conversations are really helpful and have helped us change the way we look at some of our the information we have, to make sure that we really are hearing the voice of patients when we're holding our board meetings, and really using that to inform our decision making. The other thing that we've done as a board this year is particularly to think about how we value diversity and become more inclusive as a board, but also as an organisation. And this, of course, has been something we have wanted to do anyway, and been, you know, prompted to get on with it by the impact of COVID on people from who are at risk of inequality, and people from Black and minority ethnic communities, seeing the sort of more significant impact and the need for us to really be able to be a diverse and inclusive organisation. So as we've recruited to new trustees, and I'll be introducing some of those people to you shortly, what we've thought about in that is, how do we really start to, we've always had a proper recruitment process so that we're open and transparent and people can apply, but we looked at how we recruited and how we advertised, so that we were reaching out to a broader group of people. So I'm really proud of the board that we've got now. I think at the moment our board is quite diverse, and brings a lot of different expertise and experience, both personal and professional, and that I think can only be a good thing for the Patients Association. So let's just move on to my second slide. My second and last slide, people, so please don't worry, this isn't going to be death by PowerPoint. So we've welcomed 4 new trustees who I hope you're going to vote and approve as members of the Board of Trustees today. So a big welcome to Meryl Davies, and to Bhavna Joshi, to Rowan Hilson, and to Vikas Valji as trustees. And they bring a great range of experience. If you, there are little bios in the papers that went out for them, and you can see more detail about what they bring on the website. But really, just to take a few brief things, not individually, but experience around fundraising, experience around politics and the pharmaceutical industry, clinical experience and experience of working at a national level in the health service, and experience of IT and digital, which is really so crucial at the moment with some of the way changes being made in the health service. So a big welcome to them, and thank you to them for joining us. They're already making a difference. And very sadly, we've had to say goodbye to 2 trustees, to Daniel Hopkins and to Caroline Hewitt. Daniel left a few months ago, and he worked with us on the finance committee and was extremely helpful in asking sometimes the difficult questions and the helpful questions to our treasurer to really make us sure that we're thinking through where we are. And Caroline, I would like to give a big thank you to, because Caroline joined soon after me initially as treasurer, did a huge amount of work to really make sure our finances were, we had proper oversight and proper reporting of our finances at board level, and also helped us. And then when she stepped down as treasurer, she then went on to join the governance committee and made a significant contribution there from her own experiences as both a patient and a carer. So thank you to both of them. And then, and also, we have been thinking about the future, because this is my last AGM as chair. My term of office as a trustee comes to an end at the end of December. And I've worked very hard to get the Board of Trustees to think very carefully about succession planning. So I'm delighted that they recommended Julie Talon, who joined us, to take on the role of vice chair. And we're now looking for another vice chair from our Board of Trustees, which we hope we'll have shortly, so that we'll have a team that will then be able to carry on in the chair and vice chair role when I step down at the end of December. And really, on that note, just, a short reflection from me that over the last 6 years, what I've seen is this organisation grow from strength to strength in a number of ways. enormously in terms of the sustainability of the organisation and our oversight of our finances, and how we've moved from a position of deficit to a position of having a good reserve position. But I'm not going to steal the Treasurer's thunder here, because I know he's going to talk to you about that shortly. But also through, as we've developed our strategy, getting a better financial position, all of those things has helped us be in a position to recruit more staff to deliver that strategy, and also to deliver on lots of the things that you've been saying you want of us. And I'm really pleased to see that now we are seeing the green shoots of how we engage with you more actively, and how you become much more part of our work. And I hope you'll be able to see how the team have done that in the last year, and how they're really going to be taking that forward in the coming year. So thank you. That's all I want to say by way of introduction and oversight of the work of the Board of Trustees over the last year. So I think that takes us on. So any questions? Is there anything has anybody got any questions about that part? We'll have questions all the way through the agenda. So is there anything that anybody would like to just ask about the work of the Board of Trustees at this stage? And I'm just going to see if there's anything in there. I can't see anything at the moment. If you have questions that come up later on, you can pick them up later on as we go through the agenda. So I think
we have a question just coming up from Monica about how to join the board. I think
how to join the board. So if in order to join the board, when we have a vacancy, when we know there are going to be someone leaving, we do try and plan well in ahead. And often when we recruit, actually what we often do is recruit more people than we need, so then recruit some associate trustees, so that then if people do, because occasionally people have needed to step down earlier because of personal circumstances or whatever, and then we've got people in waiting who've started to understand how we work. So when we are recruiting, when we have a vacancy, we go out to recruit, and we always put vacancies on our website. We also put them in our weekly news, and we use a number of the voluntary sector trustee recruitment sites.
And we're going to begin to recruitment soon, so that'll be in the weekly news in the next couple of weeks.
So I've encouraged the Board of Trustees to think about recruiting now, knowing that there'll be a vacancy when I go at the end of December, and likely some, and I think there are a few more people whose term of office will come to an end next year. So there will be, if there are people that are interested to apply to be a trustee, then there will be opportunities coming up in the coming months.
Now, I did also see a hand going up that I'm trying to find among the list of participants. Can the person who put their hand up, because it's not showing anymore for some reason, maybe just put it in the into the Q&A, and then we can make sure that we pick up your question. We can unmute you if you want to speak.
So Toby's asking if trustees are volunteers. Yes, so the role of a trustee is absolutely voluntary. It's not a paid role. In fact, we're not allowed to be paid under the charity law. People give of their time voluntarily, and people give as much or as little time as they have. And we have a mixture of people on the board who are retired and working part-time, which is what I do, people who are working full-time, and people have part-time roles. So some people have more time to contribute, people contribute what they can. And that's what I would say, that all of our trustees contribute enormously and are hugely valued by the organisation for what they bring. Brilliant. So I'm going to move us on now to the minutes of the last meeting, which I just need to open on my here. So for the minutes of the AGM, everybody who's attending should have been sent a copy of these. So I'm just going to, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, There's 5 pages of minutes. There's no actions that particularly arose from that, and we answered all of the questions at the time. So I'm really just going to ask for somebody to approve the minutes and for somebody to second approving of those minutes. So if people could put that into the chat, anyone or one of the trustees would be happy to. There we are. Mayor said that members will have received a copy of the 2021 minutes when you were invited to this year's AGM. So I think Tony Thorburn has approved the minutes, and Rachel King has said she's happy to approve the minutes. And I think Tony may be seconding them. But Fiona Brown has certainly confirmed that she's seconded. Thank you so much.
And Tony was too, which is.
And Tony was too. Good.
They would heard it.
Good. So that's good. Well, it's better to have more people approving and seconding than not enough. No, don't be sorry, Tony. That was really helpful. So I'm now just, if we could now move on to the next slide. So I'm going to hand over to Rachel Power, our Chief Executive, to talk about it. But really just to say, by way of, talk about what we've been doing, but by way of introduction, as I said earlier, we launched our 5-year strategy patient partnership. And it really has, I think, already had an impact. I think people are beginning to get the message that what we want to see is true patient partnership. And we particularly chose the word partnership rather than engagement and involvement, which are terms that you hear a lot in the NHS. People talk about patient involvement, patient engagement. And we felt that because although the NHS has talked about that for many, many years, it's still not a reality for patients. So we wanted to be clear about what we meant, but say something slightly different and that we felt was perhaps a bit more authentic to patients in terms of what they were looking for. So that's why our focus was and is and will continue to be patient partnership. But Rachel, over to you.
Thanks very much, Lucy. And now that you've kind of told people that you are going, I think you've shown great leadership to the organisation. And without you and the rest of the trustees, I don't think we'd have got to where we got to, because your challenge and your support has been more than welcome. So we, as Lucy said, we launched our strategy last year, and shortly you'll be hearing from Sarah Tilsett, who we appointed last year as our new role of head of patient partnership to help guide us and work closely with me in achieving patient partnership. We'll be telling you more about the patient partnership and the journey we're going on when we get to the future plans, which is a couple of slides away. But last year was a really busy year for the Patient Association, as you can imagine. And I was delighted to get Sarah and Maya, who's our head of comms and engagement, as new posts within the organisation. We published 2 pandemic patient experience surveys, which we spent a lot of time with NHS England and other stakeholders ensuring that they heard what patients were experiencing during that. And indeed, the issue around face-to-face GP appointments was one of the issues that we raised quite strongly with them. And whilst we know that some people still aren't getting it, at least there was a letter issued by NHS England around face-to-face appointments. We launched another report at the end of December, which we call the Storm Before the Storm, which I know that you've all seen. And again, it was around how to get partnership and how to get shared decision making working in the first instance. And in a few weeks' time, we'll be writing out to you, because we have developed a vision about what we think patient partnership is, and we're going to bring that to a group which we're going to be inviting members to join. But we've also developed our theory of change that shows how we can achieve what we want to achieve in the next 5 years. So the pandemic patient experience reports were really important, because it was an opportunity for us to make sure the patient voices were heard, and that when we were speaking with NHS and all the different groups that I sit on, that I was bringing the lived experience of our members and using that as my evidence to try and increase engagement with patients. So the other things that we did was we in all responded to 17 consultations, and we held over 27 focus groups, which was, and I'm quite a few of you, I recognize your names because I think some of you have come on our focus groups, which has been brilliant. And then in July we developed a report on shared decision making, and that was done based on 3 co-production workshops with patients, carers and health professionals, and that was to explore how shared decision making really did work. And in a couple of weeks' time we'll be launching a second report on shared decision making, and this is actually with healthcare professionals to understand how shared decision making works for them. So we have the patient view and we have the healthcare professional view, and that'll give us some very clear actions to develop after that. We conducted 2 membership surveys, and of course we held an event in November, thank you Maya, around shared decision making. So we'll be doing an awful lot this year around that agenda of making sure that shared decision making is implemented effectively throughout the NHS, and we know that that's a big thing to try and achieve. But we have some key stakeholders that want to work closely with us in terms of patient groups and in terms of NHS staff who are really passionate about trying to get it right as well. So we also then told, one of the things when I joined was I didn't feel we talked to our members enough, and I hope that members feel that we are talking an awful lot more to you, and we want to do more of that. We're never going to get it completely to the level that I wanted, so it's going to be constantly working on how we do that. But Sarah's going to give you a bit of an update now, I think, about the 2 membership surveys that we did and what you told us and what we did in response to that.
No, I won't, but I will do that a little bit later, because I think, if I'm right in thinking, the next
lived experience.
Around lived experience, which I will be speaking about.
So I'm delighted, before Sarah starts talking about the lived experience advisory panel, there are a number of our lived experience advisory members at this AGM, so we're delighted to know that you're here. And if there's something you want to add or say, please stick it in the chat box so that people can hear your experiences. But I think Sarah has some information she wants to tell us.
I do, and thank you, Rachel. So as Rachel mentioned, my name is Sarah Tilstead and I am the head of patient partnership. So I've been in this role for just coming up to a year now. And as Rachel said, I started at the same time as Maya, who leads our comms and marketing. So last year we established our lived experience advisory panel, and that has now been renamed Patient Voices Matter. So the name was changed by the group. The group decided that that's what they wanted to call it, Patient Voices Matter, which I think is a really important name. Now, these 10 patients come from all walks of life across the UK, and it's a range of nationalities, from regions, a different range of conditions, caring responsibilities. So a really broad range of patients, which is absolutely fantastic, because every session, which is roughly every 4 to 6 weeks, we come together and we talk about the health experiences that each member are facing. And Rachel and I join those sessions and we talk about our experiences of the health system as well. And we have an external facilitator who runs these sessions. And as you can imagine, the experiences are really varied from each member, but considering that they're very varied, the same themes are coming up time and time again. And I'm sure that none of you will be surprised to hear that the themes that we talk about are accessibility, communication, and personalisation, or lack of all of those, should I say. So in terms of accessibility, we're hearing from people with learning disabilities who are not able to understand their letters from the GP. We're hearing about communication from GPs, or again, lack of, and cancelling their appointments without them being aware. And again, lack of personalisation and people feeling that they're not really cared about by the healthcare professionals and are just seen as their condition and perhaps not seen as a person. And unfortunately, one of our lived experience advisory panel members was going to come on screen now and say a few words, but he couldn't make it. And as Rachel said, we do have a few other people on the call, but they each have to either fly away to another meeting or go and see some family members. So what I thought I would do is I would read out one of the Patient Voices Matters members' scripts. So this is what he was meant to be saying today, and it's such a shame that he can't join us to say this today. So, hello, my name is Mo. I live in Manchester with my wife, and we both care for our 26-year-old disabled son. He has a trachea, is oxygen dependent, has a rare combined heart and lung condition from birth, recent renal complications, bones and growth development issues, to name just a few of his complex health issues, hence needing a lot of care hours. We unfortunately have a lot of experience in various hospitals and NHS trusts up and down the country, following our son's life of frequent hospitalisation since his day of birth. I'm here only thanks to the great work I've been privileged to be a part of with the Patients Association. Currently, being part of the Patient Voices Matter Lived Experience panel has been an eye-opener for me. It is a priceless opportunity to be part of debate and discussion of other patients from all walks of life, geographically, ethnicity, educationally, and of course, each of us having our own struggle with health issues, connecting us all to how we are struggling to cope with an NHS system which is delivering services in random ways. Better in some areas, not so good in some. We can start to slowly combat the hurdles, overcoming the issues, the stressful experiences and stories when we discuss these. And when these are documented and told to services, policy makers to the NHS established bodies always looking to better, it will be a hope for us all to even see a slight change to better our next experience, not just for us, but for all NHS users. That's what I see and hear in our PVM group discussions. So a huge thank you to the Patients Association and its staff for our ongoing discussions and their great work. So that was just a little extract from Mo, and as I said, it's a real shame that he couldn't attend today. And if we just go to, you can see that he, yeah.
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep, hi, I'm Toby. Well, basically I joined Patients Association as a member because I'm passionate about the voice of patients being heard. And the reason for that is I've previously in my life, I've been the service user governor with NHS in Sheffield. So I'd like to think I've seen kind of some of the challenges in the NHS from both a health and social care point, struggles with, and I've also having lived experience with physical, mental health issues and autism, and hearing from other people who have been in receipt of services some of the like the uncomfortableness of when patients say care plans have come to an end and then they've gone back to square one. It's like, how do conversations happen, and how can those conversations take place to help avoid people getting back into a crisis?
Thank you so much, Toby. That was wonderful. Do you want to say anything else?
Nothing.
No?
I've waffled on enough.
No, you did not. You definitely did not waffle. That was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Toby.
Pleasure.
Okay, I will continue. That was great to hear from Toby, and I'll continue to say some of the things that members told us and what we are doing about that. So members said that they wanted training. Now this is quite a big thing for us to put into place. So we're going to start doing this slowly in the way that we think about this. And one of the pieces of work that we've started doing is with Hearts Valley. And this is on patient participation groups, also known as PPGs. And we're going to take some of the learning that we do with this project, see if we could potentially use it for future use. So this will look at training up or providing kind of resources to PPGs so that they have the confidence and the resources to set up their own and kind of spread it around Hearts Valley. So hopefully we can learn from some of that. You also said that you're really keen to campaign, and this is something that we often hear. Now, we have been looking through our website and our resources, and we're going to provide opportunities on our reports and on our website for just small ways that people can get involved, and ways that people can campaign. And also next year is our 60th anniversary, which is very exciting. So we'll make sure that there are some ways that you can get involved then. And you wanted to know what the impact of your involvement with the Patients Association was. And we're making better use of the way that we use your feedback forms. So after focus groups, for example, people will fill in feedback forms, and we're going to make sure that we really listen to what people say there, and also just make sure that you're updated with the focus groups or the surveys or whatever it is that you have been involved in. And lastly, you were really keen for us to hold events, and we would love to be holding regular events, but as you can imagine, with a very small team, there's only so much we can do. But we're going to be optimistic. We're going to try and do some more events. And as Rachel said, we held a shared decision-making event last year, which was successful. And we'd like to do some future ones. And these will be online ones, hopefully. And we really want to do a Patient Voices Matter event. And we're also keen to do another event at the end of the year.
So the event at the end of the year, Sarah, will be around patient partnerships. So we want to bring together people, members and healthcare professionals to really, and hopefully that won't be face-to-face. That's my dream. It will be a face-to-face event with some workshops so that we can really start looking at actually what does it look like if an organisation is doing patient partnership really, really well.
Thank you. And I think that's it from me. I believe we are on to Isaac next.
Thank you. So I'd like to introduce Isaac Egberedu, our treasurer, who will take you through our finances and our financial position, and has a good story to tell, I think, Isaac.
Thank you, Lucy. Welcome you all to this year's annual general meeting of the Patients Association. Before I take you through the overview of the account, I'd like to seize this opportunity to say thank you to Caroline Hewitt, who took us on a journey that we're now sitting proudly on good road to recovery financially for all our selfless work. Thank you so much, Caroline. This year, I present to you an overview of the organization's accounts the year ended 31st of December 2021. The complete account will be available on the website of the Patients Association, at the Charities Commission website, and Companies House website. The association, that is the Patients Association's accounts, have been independently examined by our appointed examiner, who agreed with our opinion and the basis of preparing our accounts on an ongoing concern basis. Simply put, this means that we can see the organization carrying on its business into the foreseeable future. These accounts have been filed on time and ready to view by the public. We started the year with an opening balance of £177,958. During the course of the year, we generated income to the tune of £650,100, compared to the previous year's figure of £471,631. This is an increase of £178,000, due mainly to the hard work of the project team and to our corporate membership. Our expenditure for the year was £579,876 compared to £480,706 in the previous year, an increase of 99,170. Again, due to the increased activity of the management team in all the projects works and other associated projects that they've carried out throughout the year. And I'm sure you'll be hearing a bit more on that later. The balance at year end was £248,182 compared to at the closing of the previous year of £177,958. This again is a very good increase in our reserves of £70,224. This balance is being set aside to meet our reserves policy, which is on two levels. The first level is a base reserve covering all liabilities should the organization no longer be a going concern. But you will see from the figures in front of you that I believe very strongly that we're a little bit far from that. And the second level of reserve is a 6-month reduced running costs to cover expenditure in the event of reduced income or changes in expenditure. You will see that we have done and we continue to match on with our revenues in order to have a sustainable fund to deliver on our 5-year strategy. So on that note, I will stop my brief overview and ask if there are any questions. Thank you. If there are no any other questions, I will now hand you over to Lucy.
So Isaac, there's just a couple of comments in the chat box, which is great news on the finance report. Well done to all. Thanks for all the hard work by trustees and staff. And then Toby has said, well done with finances, good stewardship.
Thank you, Toby. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Isaac. And if people do have any further questions that come to their mind around finances, you can pick those up in the further question and answer times as well. But Isaac has thanked Caroline, you know, rightly so, but we also need to then thank Isaac, who, when he took over from Caroline, has provided absolutely sound and stable governance and governorship or treasurership of our finances, and worked very closely with Rachel, and also provided really good information, as did Caroline, to the Board of Trustees, because we're not all accountants, but we do need to understand the money. And I know very well that if you present the money in a way that people can understand, then they know what they're dealing with and they know that they're making the right decisions. So that also contributes to creating this position. But a big thank you to the team, as Isaac said too. So I think now that brings us on to our membership voting. And I'm going to hand us back to Rachel, who has got all of that detail.
Yes, just give me 1 second to pull it up in front of me. Yeah, I have it here now. So there were there was 3 resolutions that we needed members to vote for, and that was to receive the report and accounts for 2021, which was sent out in the pack and which Isaac has just covered. And I'm delighted to say that the majority voted to accept those accounts, so we'll now be ready to file them properly and finalize them. And then the next one is, as per our Articles of Association, our honorary treasurer needs to be voted in on a yearly basis. And I'm glad to say that that has been approved by the members, that Isaac will remain as our honorary treasurer for another year. And then Isaac talked about the independent examination of accounts, and that's an external accountancy firm who comes in and looks at everything that we've been doing with invoicing and payments, and just double checks that everything's been done in the best way possible and safest way possible. And the members have agreed to approve the appointment of that company for another year, which is good news. And then we have the election to our 4 new trustees, to Meryl and to Bhavna and Rowan and Wikas. And I'm delighted to say that the membership approved all of their votes as well. The actual numbers for each vote will be in the minutes, but overwhelmingly everyone was approved for appointment as trustee for the next 3 years. So that's the membership voting. It's a bit like the Eurovision.
Yes, except we didn't have nil fun, so that's good. So thank you very much for that, and thank you to all of our members for approving all of those different resolutions, which is really helpful. So now that takes us on to thinking to the future, what we're going to be doing this year, and how you can all be more involved. And Rachel, I know, is going to take us through that with the team, and then after that there'll be time for some question and discussion, and really welcome people's questions and comments when we get there, to help us make sure we're doing the right things as we go forward in the this year. So Rachel.
Fantastic. So Holly, at this point, can we just get Shivani ready to come on, because Shivani is our head of programs, and she's going to outline some of the programs that we're doing at the moment. And I think some of the Q&As, Shivani will be talking about a project around PPGs that we're doing, and somebody's asked a question on there, so I haven't tried to answer it yet. So at the beginning of January 2022, trustees agreed the business plan for this year, and set the leadership team some very clear objectives and some very clear measurements. And one of the things that'll be updated on our website over the next few weeks will be our diversity objectives that we've set for this year, and I meant to put this on this slide. So if I talk first about patient partnership, and we will be writing out to all members to show them the vision paper of what, but we need to test that vision paper. So we'll be pulling together a group of stakeholders to really sit down and look at what does patient partnership look like, with the aim that we can Isaac, did you want? And the idea is then within kind of by the end of this year that we have established some pilots where we can really test out the approach for patient partnership. And we do have some really good local ICS kind of areas that are interested in doing that with us. So I think that's quite an exciting piece of work that's going to go on. But to get patient partnership working, we really have to get shared decision making. So we are continuing our stakeholder collaboration, and we were delighted, you know, hot off the press is the recent survey that we did looking at shared decision making from doctors and healthcare professionals' point of view. We had over 1,000 respondents, which I think is a huge achievement for the Patient Association, because we know how healthcare staff are working at the moment, and for them to find time and be willing to complete that. So that report will be launched at NHS Confed at the beginning of June, and then we will be sending out a copy and some headlines in our weekly news for those of you who are signed up, and we can tell you a lot more about that when that report is finalised. And then the increasing and working, so we all saw during the pandemic the difficulty and the health inequalities that, you know, didn't come during the pandemic. They were there, and they've been there for a number of years. But as an organisation, you know, we had to get ourselves from where we started when Lucy took over as chair and I took over as chief executive. We've been on quite a journey, and now is time for us to really work with some smaller patient groups. So you saw I put a question in the chat saying, you know, you ideas of other groups we should be working with, get in touch with me. We've been reaching out so that when we do focus groups as well, that we're getting a real wide variety, and we're really aiming to get that voice that has not been listened to by NHS services to make sure that we can amplify that voice and work with them. So I think that's really important. And of course, as part of that is making sure that we can provide high quality information to patients, their families and their carers. And I was delighted at the beginning of this year that we achieved the patient information tick, which talks about how the good quality of the information that we're providing to patients. And we will again be reaching out to members, because as part of achieving that tick to say that it's quality assured, we want to be able to check with members what they need. So I think you'll have seen in the weekly news a few weeks ago that we asked you about social prescribing, and now we're looking at what kind of information we can provide around social prescribing, or whether it's links to others. So it's continuing that piece of work. If you've any more feedback on the member survey, but I think the big thing for me in that member survey is those campaigning tools and what we can do to develop those, so that, because a lot of times, being such a small organization, it may be that in your local area there isn't a dentist, which is one of the big things we're hearing on our helpline at the moment. Or, what can you do as individuals and smaller groups of individuals? How do we give you the power to do that campaigning and influencing by us supporting you as much as we possibly can do? So I think that's quite important. We are increasing our engagement with national NHS bodies, and I have spent a couple of meetings with the Chief Executive of NHS England, who is showing a commitment to shared decision making and making sure it was right, and actually quoted us at a further meeting where she really showed that commitment to shared decision making. I still sit in the NHS Assembly, and we sit on a number of different groups, and the New Patient Voice Matters magazine will be giving you some highlights from some of those groups too, so we can tell you. And all I hear from you through our helpline, through our focus groups, I bring that in and make sure that that's what's represented at those national groups. Then I will let Fanny will join us in a minute, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about what we're doing in integrated care systems. But that's a big job for us to even find all those contact details and manage to get in touch with them. But that's something we need to do, and that's ongoing. And then Sarah's talked to you about the Patient Voice Matters, and I've seen a number of members on the screen have said, how do we get more involved? We'll let you know. There's going to be lots more of this kind of work going on. So we'll be in touch with you about that. Getting a real wide variety, and we're really aiming to get that voice that has not been listened to by NHS services to make sure that we can amplify that voice and work with them. So I think that's really important. And of course, as part of that is making sure that we can provide high quality information to patients, their families and their carers. And I was delighted at the beginning of this year that we achieved the patient information tick, which talks about how the good quality of the information that we're providing to patients. And we will again be reaching out to members, because as part of achieving that tick to say that it's quality assured, we want to be able to check with members what they need. So I think you'll have seen in the weekly news a few weeks ago that we asked you about social prescribing, and now we're looking at what kind of information we can provide around social prescribing, or whether it's links to others. So it's continuing that piece of work. If you've any more feedback on the member survey, but I think the big thing for me in that member survey is those campaigning tools and what we can do to develop those, so that, because a lot of times, being such a small organization, it may be that in your local area there isn't a dentist, which is one of the big things we're hearing on our helpline at the moment. Or, what can you do as individuals and smaller groups of individuals? How do we give you the power to do that campaigning and influencing by us supporting you as much as we possibly can do? So I think that's quite important. We are increasing our engagement with national NHS bodies, and I have spent a couple of meetings with the Chief Executive of NHS England, who is showing a commitment to shared decision making and making sure it was right, and actually quoted us quoted us at a further meeting where she really showed that commitment to shared decision making. I still sit in the NHS Assembly, and we sit on a number of different groups, and the New Patient Voice Matters magazine will be giving you some highlights from some of those groups too, so we can tell you. And all I hear from you through our helpline, through our focus groups, I bring that in and make sure that that's what's represented at those national groups. Then I will let Fanny will join us in a minute, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about what we're doing in integrated care systems. But that's a big job for us to even find all those contact details and manage to get in touch with them. But that's something we need to do, and that's ongoing. And then Sarah's talked to you about the Patient Voice Matters, and I've seen a number of members on the screen have said, how do we get more involved? We'll let you know. There's going to be lots more of this kind of work going on. So we'll be in touch with you about that. And then do we have Shivani ready to talk about our projects? Brilliant. So I'm delighted to introduce Shivani, who's our head of programs. And he's going to just give you some ideas of some of the real patient focused work that we're doing at the moment.
Thanks so much, Rachel. Projects has really grown over the last few years, and our work in terms of patient partnership and shared decision making has just been building year on year, which is fantastic. And it just means that we're able to have a broader impact, we're able to influence system level change, or at least work towards it. So it's all good stuff. I'm just going to talk about 2 or 3 key projects which I think might be of interest. One is the piece of work that we're doing with shared decision making, and it's basically a pilot in partnership with another organisation called the Patient Information Forum. So great partnership working, again, something that we've only started exploring more recently as we've grown as a team. It's basically looking at an integrated care system in Nottingham to see how patients are impacted within a specific pathway if they are given the tools and confidence to use shared decision-making practices, basically. And it's a really exciting piece of work for us as an organisation, because what it means is we'll be able to see how working directly with patients at that localised level, what impact that has on their outcomes and their patient experience. And we can use that then for the basis of further work and further development around approaches and frameworks and things like that we can roll out with other ICSs and systems. Another project I wanted to run past everyone was a piece of work that we're doing with NHS England and Improvement. They have a department called the Referral Optimisation Team, or Specialist Advice and Guidance Services. And it's basically a service where when a GP is unsure about whether to refer a patient into sort of secondary care outpatient services, they can call upon an expert consultant or an expert healthcare professional and get their advice on it to help them make a decision on whether that patient should be referred or not. This service has been historically developed without any patient voice, or very minimal patient voice, and it's really exciting for us to be working with the service this year to bring together a panel of patients who will feed into this service in terms of what can be improved and how it can be made better for patient experience. So again, system design and development with patients right at the heart of it. So it's really exciting. Finally, we've just literally this week started on a new project with another organisation that we're partnering with called Engage Britain, where we're looking at establishing a diverse panel for patients made up of patients and carers who have complex healthcare needs. And this piece of work is going to explore good examples of healthcare communication and where they can be improved. And this is a real opportunity again to influence at higher levels, because this feeds into a much wider piece of work that Engage Britain are doing with a people's panel of over 100 people with tons of patient stories that they hope to bring together to create some recommendations for system level change. So all really exciting stuff, and I'd be happy to talk to anyone if they had any further questions or thoughts on our projects, but that's just a very small snippet of a really broad portfolio of projects that we're running at the moment. Thank you.
Shivani, thank you. Can you stay as a panelist, because there may be questions for you afterwards. So Lucy, back to you, I think.
Thank you. Thank you very much to all of the team for both telling us about what they've been doing over the last year, but also about the plans for the next year, the year to come, or the year that we're already in. And I hope that you're all as excited as I am. And actually, I would just like to add, and all of the trustees have made these comments, and particularly those of us who have been in the organisation a long time, to Shivani and to Rachel, about the projects that when I first joined, we had a list of projects, but I couldn't ever really quite work out. There were some things we were doing that looked very good and very nice, but I couldn't often work out why we were doing them, why we were doing that project rather than another project. And we were doing quite a lot of little things that weren't things that we could really then adopt and share across the service. So things that were very pertinent to a particular area, not something that we could then that could then be adopted elsewhere. And what we all see now as trustees is that we have a very exciting programme of projects, many of which are much bigger projects than before, so they're going to make more of an impact and a difference to patients. And then, as you've heard, in line with our strategy, some of the work around that's being led around shared decision making, but also some of the work and some of that's happening through working with the integrated care systems. And that's really important to us, because every time the NHS reorganises itself and creates a new structure or a new system, what we've tried to say really loudly to the NHS and to government is that patients need to be a part of that and need to be heard and not be left behind. So for us, the trustees have been very concerned to see that the team are thinking about how they engage with integrated care systems, which are going to go live from July this year, following the royal assent of the Health and Care Bill earlier this year. So it's a very exciting story to tell, I think. But now it's time, I think, for any questions and answers. And I think there has been some questions and answers. And there's one question I've seen particularly, I'm not sure that I can see everything, but there's a lot of discussion. There's been a bit of chat in the Q&A about patient participation groups. And David has said, should PPGs be one of the areas the PA should be concentrating on and become known for championing this work? Maybe set up a national support network for them. It needs more of a national profile. So I don't know who wants to answer that. Rachel, do you want to start?
Because I have a dream.
Oh,
I have a dream.
Very exciting.
I completely agree with David, and there is a lot more. But of course, there is the National Association for Patient Participation out there as well. So we have to be careful. But if we can really get a good framework for patient partnership and a toolkit or a methodology or whatever we call it, then eventually that could be a type of an accreditation, and PPGs could be involved in that. So I do think that the work that Shivani is doing at the moment, and Sarah is involved with the local hearts PPG, and there is more work coming out of Olivia Butterworth's team in NHS E&I, where we've done the animation. So I do think there's a lot more work we could be doing with PPGs, but it's really trying to partnership with NAP as well. And Shivani, is there anything else you want to say on the animation that we've just done on PPGs?
Thanks, Rachel. Just to kind of pick up what Rachel was saying about the couple of pieces of work we are doing. So currently I sit on an advisory group with Olivia Butterworth's team. So the kind of patient participation team at NHS EI, along with NAP and a couple of other organisations, Health Watch. And we are really working to think about what PPGs look like and how they've changed and evolved over time. And, how do we get that kind of diversity and broader community representation within them, and provide tools and resources that are current and usable and accessible. So it's a really, really interesting piece of work. And as part of that, we developed an animation, and with a wider working group, we developed 10 principles for PPGs that they should consider, and they're kind of all-round principles that should be used by sort of practice staff, as well as patients and PPG members. So really interesting piece of work, and that's all documented on our website. And the ICS piece of work as well, we're currently working with Hertfordshire Integrated Care System to support them with reinvigorating their PPGs and just making them work in a much more consistent way, because they have some that work really well and others that are that could do with a little bit more support. So we're looking to work with them to develop some training bespoke to their locality and their communities, to deliver across all of their CCGs. And I don't know what that acronym stands for, Rachel, so you can jump in and clarify that one. Is it commissioning groups? Yes.
Commissioning groups.
Clinical commissioning groups, yes. So across their clinical commissioning groups, and they've got 3 within that patch. So we are really looking to think about how we work in that space, along with other partners and relevant organisations as well.
Thank you, Shivani. And I'm going to get through all the questions, so don't worry if I'm not getting them quite in order. But then John Carty has asked, how are the voices of chronic primary pain patients being heard by the Patients Association, noting that 28% of the UK population suffer with chronic pain? Rachel.
Yeah, so John was in touch with us yesterday, so myself and Sarah are going to get in touch with John. I've just come back from some leave to try and explain where we are. So we have done work in pain in the past, and that a lot of that was where the care home charter started coming from as well. But staff with patients with pain conditions do attend our focus groups, so they are involved in focus groups. But there is the Pain Coalition out there as well, who we have tried to partner with in the past, and it may be something that John's kind of highlighted that I need to get back out there and try and partner with them again. But John, myself and Sarah will be in touch. I think Sarah's got your email and will be in touch with you to talk to you more about other charities out there that are doing that as well. But being non-condition and non-specific, non-condition and non-disease specific, anyone can come to our focus groups. But it's made me think about whether, John's email made me think about whether there is more in terms of resources that we could have on our websites and linking over to other charities. So we're going to talk more to them.
I think that's really helpful. And of course, chronic people who suffer with chronic pain, David, as you will know, there's been a lot in the media recently, and certainly in my previous incarnation's not the right word, but previous other existences, I've been very involved in how we really help people with chronic pain, and don't just resort to some of the drugs that aren't always helpful to people. So there's a lot, and I think that's something that we could think about. So I'm sure that'll be a helpful conversation, and thank you for raising it. Now, on a completely different subject, and this, David has said, should we have a better fundraising department? Now, what we have done, David, I have to say, is that is something that's a focus. So we're very pleased that we've got one of our trustees, Meryl, who's got experience in fundraising, to help guide the board. And Rachel and the team have done work around our fundraising strategy, so that we really think about how we go about that. Rachel, do you want to say a little bit about it? And Isaac might want to add as well.
I'd love a fundraising team. Thanks, Isaac. Thanks. We have in the past had we often get support through freelancers, not consultants, but freelancers. And myself and Meryl, who is one of the new trustees, were just talking about this the other day, because in the past, do you bring in somebody from a fundraising perspective that's able to do individual fundraising, or do you bring in grants, and finding that generalist? But over the last few years, fundraising has been pretty much my job, but Shivani brings in such an amount of money through projects, and Sarah and the team now are getting much more involved in it, so that it's diversifying within the structure that we have at the moment. But yeah, any ideas on other fundraising initiatives? And I think one of the things that we're going to be launching through our 60th anniversary, at the time when the NHS becomes 75 and we become 60, so there's a link there. Someone talked about an award in the chat box earlier on, and I answered that saying, yes, I'd love to have a Patient Association award, and maybe we will. But we are getting some pro bono support from one of our comms agencies that have worked with us around kind of fundraising asks to put into our 60th anniversary as well. And thank you all to those members who do make donations. Every penny does help.
Thank you very much. And Isaac, do you want to add to that fundraising discussion? You're happy. So it is something that's constantly on our agenda, thinking about how we maximise where we get income from and make sure that we are maintaining our income streams. And I think that, but we have become more sustainable. And we can never rest on our laurels. You know, we're moving this year, as everybody knows. I don't need to remind you all that it's a very difficult year for everybody financially, with inflation going up and cost of living rising. And so we are very mindful that that could have an impact for us on our income stream. So trustees are keeping a close eye on that situation with the staff team.
And I think, you know, fundraising team would be great, but it's very difficult for a small organisation. But I think, you know, the evidence is that we started with a £257,000 deficit at the end of 2017, and we've turned that into a 70k surplus. And one of the things that I know trustees and I have talked about is, you know, trying to get that multi-year funding awards from people, and it's just not happening. And it is difficult to keep having the time to go in, but you know, with the kind of funding that we need, it nearly has to be one of us, because we know the business really well, and fundraisers will know the business, and I used to run a fundraising team, but it's difficult for the size we are at the moment.
Absolutely. So I think what we have done is brought in that support when we've needed it, haven't we? Now, Toby Morgan has asked, does anyone know if the Patients Charter still exists? I've not seen posters about it in healthcare venues for ages. Toby, what an interesting comment, because I think the Patients Charter came out, I think, way back, wasn't it, under the days of Ken Clarke as Secretary of State, and Margaret Thatcher, when money was going to follow the patient, I recall, was one of the slogans. But anyway, I don't know, and I don't know if there's an answer to that.
I don't know, but I know that through the NHS Constitution, through the NHS Assembly, we've been talking about the NHS Constitution, which is, you know, where the patient charter should be based on. But it was very interesting because we brought that to our lived experience advisory panel, and, you know, any charter or constitution really needs to speak in basic English. So no, yeah, I don't know where it is. But the NHS Constitution has to be updated. It's coming out of date. So that's what we're challenging from an NHS Assembly point of view.
So anyway, that's something we'll have a look and see if we can find out, Toby, and see if it still exists. I can remember the kind of front cover of the document. In fact, somewhere in all the masses of stuff I've got, I might even be able to find an old version of it. Who knows? And David has come back following the fundraising discussion, saying that congratulating us on getting going with Smile Amazon. And I have to say that Vikas prompted us on that, so that was a good thing. But saying we could still sweat the membership more, well, that may be. And watch out for what we're looking at, as Rachel has said, around what the team are planning around the 60th anniversary. They'll certainly be wanting to engage the membership more. So I can't see. I don't think, but it's always difficult to know if I'm seeing everything. I can't see any more particular questions about in the question and answer. I'm just going to look at the chat now and see if there's anything particular. I think there people are answering lots of questions. Our
lovely helpline worker has just answered the question about the patient charter. We should have gone to the CETA Festival.
Ah, the NHS Patients Charter was replaced by the NHS Constitution. There we are. So
Thank
we are.
You, Cecita.
Well done, Cecita. That is brilliant. Thank you very much. So at the moment, I can't see any further questions.
Sheila has raised her hand.
Sorry, I can't.
Can we unmute Sheila?
Sheila's raised her hand. Very good. I can't see the people with hands raised, I'm afraid.
Just give it a second, because Holly will try and unmute her, or Sarah.
Sorry, that hand's now gone down. So I don't know if they withdrawn their question. Please raise it again if you do want to speak.
Sheila, type your question in the box. Oh.
Well, I think there are people chatting, but I can't. And people, there's some general chat. Toby was very positive about the work around the project around referrals and you know, GP referrals for advice and guidance. And there's and then there's a further comment from not sure who, I can't see it's from, but from somebody else agreeing that that's really important. And I think it absolutely is, that it's a great way to get advice, advice and the right treatment quickly, but patients do really need to be part of that and it not to be happening without their involvement. So I think that's going to be really exciting. Any further questions or anything anybody wants to say at this stage? Just going to make sure there's nothing more. So David is suggesting maybe a fundraising panel for interested people. So that's an interesting point, David. Actually, one of the ways we often work is to, if we're going to do a piece of work on something or have a bit of focus, is to have a task and finish group. So actually, what you've said there, that if we were going to do a piece of work around fundraising, what we could do is, it'd be really good to go out to our members and see if there are people in the membership who've got expertise around fundraising who come and help us with that. So that's a really great idea. Thank you so much. And Sheila said she put up her hand in error. Well done, Sheila. I'm glad it's not just me that does things like that. I'm always doing that.
And David, let's talk further outside this meeting, because some member support on how we ask for support would be really beneficial.
Absolutely, absolutely. Exactly. So I think that it's now about 3:15, and it's quite difficult spending a lot of time on screen. People need a break, some time away, and we've had some really great questions, so thank you, and some great comments about our work. So it's really, I'm getting a sense from some of the comments as well that people think we're going in the right direction and we're doing things that you're interested in and that matter to you. So, and that's what really matters, because that's why we're here. So that only leaves me now then to say really a big thank you to the staff team for all their work over the last year. And as I said at the start, through that second year of the pandemic, it's hard to remember now, isn't it? But the thing, the start of 2021, we went into an even longer lockdown. So working at home plus being locked down is even, it's really tough and really hard. So thank you to people for keeping going through that. Thank you very much to our board of trustees who I think are great. They're very engaged people. There's nobody that sits around the table and doesn't say anything. And also provide their skills and expertise to the team, which I know is hugely valued. And then finally, thank you very much to all our members. Thank you for being members. Thank you for wanting to be members and being engaged. And actually, some of the things you've suggested, really helps us and will help Sarah, I think, today in ways that you can be more engaged. So that's really helpful to us. So we look forward to continuing to working with you all over the next year, the rest of this year and into the future. And Rachel wants to add something further.
Just to say that in the chat box, there's a survey, but we will send you a link about how we can, what we can do better and in terms of these meetings. So if you can, we will email it out to you as well. But if you want to just click on there, you can see it. Or cut and paste it to do later. We'd really appreciate the feedback.
Brilliant, thank you so much. And of course, the other thing to say in terms of getting engaged is that being more involved with us is that there will be more. The team are planning to hold, as we had our shared decision-making event, further events this year. Won't be hundreds, but focused around the work we're doing and things that would be good for you to get engaged with. So lots of thank yous coming in. So thank you, everybody, and have a good rest of your afternoon. And I look forward to working with you through the rest of the year. Thank you.